on this. Now, Melia, finish him.
Hello and welcome to Set for Smash Moveset Concept, and today we'll be making a moveset concept for the character Melia. Melia comes from the game Xenoblade Chronicles, which was originally on the Nintendo Wii. Melia is the princess of the race of the High Entia, though she's actually half Hom as well, the same species that Shulk is from. I won't go through her entire story, but I'll let you know that in the original Xenoblade Chronicles, she didn't really have an epilogue of her own. But that changed recently with Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition, which gave her a bonus story in Future Connected. Melia is a mage-like character who uses elements to boost the stats of her allies as well as herself. Though this isn't my first time with a moveset concept with a character from Xenoblade Chronicles, I was genuinely surprised a lot of the things I did for Rex and Pyra actually did get into Super Smash Bros. So let's see if I can get 2 for 2 if Melia ever joins the battle. So let's begin with the details. Canonically, her height is 5'1", which is a little shorter than Shulk, so of course her height measurements would be on par with Shulk's. Melia's stats, however, will tend to vary from time to time, but by default she is a mid-light character with slow speed, weak attack, weak defense, weak knockback, and 2 below average jumps and no other movement options. Her entrance animation is somewhat similar to Shulk's, except she'll have her staff slamming down with her and then putting it away. The series symbol, of course, is the symbol of the Monado. Her victory theme is similar to Shulk's. For her taunts, Melia will raise her staff preparing for battle, and she'll say,
"Witness my power!"
For her second taunt, she'll summon her staff again, and then she'll do a fighting stance similar to her actual collectible figurine. A somewhat of a reference to the fact that Pyra and Mithra spirits are actual references to their figurine model, which, by the way, I actually have one. For her third taunt, she takes a bow and then raises back up, a reference to one of her idol animations. For her color palettes, her first one will be her default design, which is the Colony 1 outfit. Palette 2 will actually be another outfit entirely based off Future Connected, her Anemone Style 1 outfit. Color palette 3 will be her Colony 2 costume. Color palette 4 will be Anemone Style 2. Palette 5 will be Colony Style 3. Palette 6 will be Anemone Style 3. Palette 7 will be Colony Style 4. For her final color palette, it'll be her Colony 1 design again. This time she'll be wearing Tyria's mask. This mask has a story element that I would go into more detail, but again, I want to be as spoiler-free as possible. For her victory animations, she'll actually do a pose while holding her wings, and then she'll state,
"Now I see there is strength in unity."
For her second victory animation, she twirls her staff and does a victory pose. And for her final victory animation, she goes down on one knee, holds her hands together, and prays. As a bonus, both Shulk and Melia will actually have unique conversations after beating one another, referencing the unique bond these two have. Again, if you want more detail, I highly recommend playing the game. Moving on to her standard attacks. For her jab, she'll do a one-handed slap and then do a 1-2 slash with her staff. The slap is actually a reference to when she first met Shulk, as she literally slapped him in the face. And hitting characters with her staff is a common thing that she'll be using throughout most of her moveset. For her dash, she'll do an airborne jump kick but then land on her bottom. This is a reference to both her idle animation, as well as a move that she can use known as Starlight Kick, but I'm getting ahead of myself. For her side tilt, she'll actually thrust her staff, similar to the move Spear Break. For her up tilt, she'll actually swing the staff upwards in a crescent slash, similar to Isabelle's up tilt. Her down tilt will be a leg sweep. For her side smash, she'll raise out her palm in front of her and magical energy will come out. This is actually a thing she can kind of do in-game, but it's also a reference to one of her arts. For her up smash, she raises her staff in the air and magical energy will come out of it. For her down smash, she'll slam her staff into the ground and then an elemental energy will burst around her. For her aerial, she'll do a standard air kick, similar to what most characters in Smash can do. For her forward aerial, she'll do an upward slash, similar to the pose shown in her collectible figurine. For her back aerial, she'll do a powerful back kick. For the up aerial, she'll point her staff upward, and for her down aerial, she'll do a downward heel kick. Though the tip of her foot does have a spiking point, it is really hard to hit. It's actually surprisingly small. For her grabs, she'll actually use the art Shadow Stitch and bind her foes temporarily. When pummeling, the stitches will actually do the damage. For most of her throws, she'll actually throw all of her characters using magic. Forward, behind, upward, and of course down, and they bounce upwards. Somewhat similar to Lady Palutena. Next up is the special attacks. Trust me to say, her standard special is extremely complicated, as her standard special is called Summon. To those who have not played Xenoblade Chronicles or used Melia in their party whatsoever, Melia is capable of summoning 3 Ether Spheres to add a slight stat boost to both herself and her allies. So just like in Smash Bros., you'll be able to summon different elements to actually boost Melia's stats in a certain way. It works exactly like Shulk's Monado arts. The only difference is the following. Though Shulk's Monado arts gave him a massive stat boost, Melia's would only give half as much, as she's only capable of summoning 3 different elemental types, though she's only capable of doing specific stat boosts. And of course, there is a recharge after using them, so I'm going to go into detail on which elemental does what. First is the element Fire, or Summon Flare. Being the elemental color of red, this will boost Melia's smash attack, aka her knockback ability. Her second element, Summon Aqua, actually isn't a stat booster, but a recovery option. Summon Aqua will heal a % of your health every second, but just like with the Monado art, it only lasts a very little amount of time, so use it wisely. It's also the only one that takes the longest time to regenerate. Summon Bolt will boost Melia's attack power, working exactly like Shulk's Buster. Summon Wind will boost Melia's jumping ability. Summon Earth will actually boost her defense. Summon Ice will boost her running speed. And lastly is Summon Copy. This one is probably the most useful, especially if you're trying to boost specific attacks, as Summon Copy will actually let you summon the previously used element that you used, meaning you can actually double stack on different elements. This would actually give Melia the double stat boost on par with Shulk, making her somewhat of a powerhouse, a highly defensive character. However, this also means you can also boost other types of stats that you think are more useful. The Kirby hat is Melia's hat with her little wings. For her side special, this is also a pretty important one, as it's very useful if you have elements. But if you have no elements used, it'll be Spear Break, where Melia will thrust her staff in front of her foes. It has above average knockback, but it's more of a keep away tool in case you need more time to actually summon an element. But it's actually more useful if you have an element, as it'll become Elemental Discharge, where you shoot one of the elements you summoned and explodes based off the elemental type. Just know this, if you use Elemental Discharge, you will automatically revert back to your normal stats based off the specific element you threw, and it'll always be the first element you summoned and then going through a cycle. So if you used fire, ice, then water, it'll go fire first, then ice, then water. But if you use Elemental Discharge, it'll actually recover the element that you used previously. So of course, I will explain the elements and how they work. So with a Flare Discharge, she'll actually throw a powerful Explosion Fireball. This attack has the most knockback. Aqua Discharge will shoot a projectile of powerful current of waves. This actually has a higher chance of trapping foes. Bolt Discharge will shoot a massive thunderbolt around the area. This attack will send enemies straight upwards, which is great for juggling foes. Wind Discharge will summon a Cyclone Explosion, which has a wind knockback ability. Even though this attack may miss for some characters, it's also really great for edge guarding. Earth Discharge will make a Terra Explosion, which will either bury or worse, spike your opponents. Another great edge guarding tool, but to make up for it being overpowered, it is the slowest moving projectile. And finally, Ice Discharge, where you'll shoot an explosion of ice that will freeze opponents. Note these are projectiles and they can be deflected back at Melia, so please be careful. For her up special, it's Starlight Kick. Melia will do an upward diagonal jump kick, somewhat of a curved version of Bayonetta's side special in a way. However, depending on the elemental type, it will also boost either your jumping, your damage, or your knockback. As even though this is great for recovery, it is probably the weakest thing about Melia. Even if you summon Wind and Copy, it's still not great for recovery. And finally, her down special, Reflection. Melia will summon a barrier around her that can deflect projectiles even while moving. There'll be a total of 6 shields around Melia's body entirely, but depending on how powerful the projectile or the attack is, the reflection could easily be deactivated. You can of course deactivate it yourself to have a faster recharge, or you can use it to protect yourself from high knockback attacks. Melia's final smash is Union Strike. Melia will shoot 2 elemental discharges, and anyone hit will be entered in a cinematic, where Pawn Specters will appear with a Petrix dropping explosions on enemies, and a giant Gogol will enter the fray. And as it ends, a smoke screen rises in the background as Melia appears with the Pawn Specters in the forefront. Of course, the Union attack is based off the Union attacks from Future Connected. And with that, we have set for Smash Melia. Thanks for watching, and if you liked what you saw, be sure to subscribe and ring the bell for notifications. I make a variety of content on my channel, so be sure to check out some of my other stuff, with my favorite video being the retrospective on Mamoru Hosoda's work. This is officially the 9th character I've done a moveset concept for, meaning that the 10th character will be the season finale. So, let's tune in on the next moveset concept.